When did you realize the person you loved was the scammer? Okay, I don't even know where to start with this dumpster fire. But I literally just found out the entire foundation of my life for the past 2 years and 8 months has been built on a scam. And I'm currently huddled in my beat-up 2018 Honda Civic in the Costco parking lot at 3:17 a.m. My iPhone 14 battery is dying. The screen is cracked thanks to me throwing it across the room earlier, which was totally warranted, BTW, and I have 58 unread texts. I need to vent this before I actually go clinically insane. I guess the TLDR is, I fell for a GoFundMe scam, and the guy who ran it is my fiancé, and he's not even a construction worker. He's a college dropout pretending to be dying of a rare disease he doesn't have, and the entire thing is somehow tied up with 2 elderly academics and about 30 cats. Let's rewind. I'm Amy Morris, 56F. Yes, 56. Yes, I should absolutely know better than to get played like this, and trust me, the self-loathing is real right now. Past Amy Morris was an idiot. Future Amy Morris is going to need about 7 years of therapy and maybe a prescription for something strong. This all centers around my ex-fiancé, Robert. Robert claimed to be a foreman at a major commercial construction site downtown. You know, the huge, ugly skeletal skyscraper they've been building near the river. He said he was basically running the show there. He was always wearing his vests and those steel-toed boots he got from Amazon, covered in fake dust. He had the whole routine down. He'd leave the apartment in our shared 12-month lease apartment 3B at 5:30 a.m. every day, even Sundays. Robert was handsome, charming, and seemed financially stressed but hardworking. That was the whole angle, right? Hardworking guy trying to make a difference, but tragedy strikes. About 10 months into our relationship, Robert started getting mysterious coughs and debilitating headaches. He'd come home absolutely exhausted. One night, while we were watching Netflix and eating Talenti gelato, he just collapsed. We rushed him to the ER. Long story short, or what I thought was the short story, he was diagnosed with a rare, aggressive form of lung disease caused by silica dust inhalation on the job. Apparently, the site safety standards were non-existent, and he was basically dying because of corporate negligence. The doctors, who, let me tell you, seemed completely professional, but that's what I get for trusting medical professionals I meet on the internet, said he needed experimental treatment that wasn't covered by insurance. The cost? Astronomical. I was devastated. I loved this man. I felt this intense, immediate need to fix it. That's when the GoFundMe campaign started. He called it Saving Robert, Battling the Dust, or something equally dramatic. He set up the page, but I promoted it everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, I even sent out emails to my colleagues on the 5th floor office where I work. I was the face of the desperate, loving fiancé, and people were so generous. Seriously, the support was overwhelming. Friends, family, strangers, we hit $10,000 in the first week. At the time I found out the truth on Tuesday at 11:47 a.m., the campaign had raised $87,450. Not bad for a lie, huh? My job in this whole debacle was being the guilty bystander. I kept seeing the money pour in, and Robert kept getting worse, and I just felt this increasing sense of dread, but I dismissed it as stress. I thought, I am doing a good thing. I am saving the man I love. The cracks started appearing slowly. Like rust on his beat-up Toyota Corolla, he always claimed was just a site vehicle. For example, he was always getting Zelle requests or Cash App notifications late at night. One time I saw a notification for a $200 withdrawal from an ATM he claimed was for buying a specific kind of rare construction material. He also insisted on paying for things like our $1,247 rent in cash, which I thought was weird since we had a joint account, but he just said he hated paper trails for tax reasons. That should have been my first clue that the math wasn't mathing. Then there were the treatments. He'd disappear for hours, claiming he was getting intravenous infusions at some obscure clinic 45 miles away. He'd come back exhausted and slightly wired. Said the medication was causing massive dehydration, which explained why we had a $347 water bill last month. I started getting nagging questions. I remember texting my friend about it. NGL, sometimes I feel like I'm babysitting a teenager. He won't let me come to any of the appointments. She texted back, girl, what the fuck, that's sketch. I told her she was overreacting. Past me was such an idiot. The real spiral began last week. I was trying to upload photos of my cat Mittens to my iCloud, but my iPhone storage was full. I needed to delete some massive file. Robert never lets me touch his Apple Watch or his phone, but his Samsung Galaxy was basically dead, battery dying at 3% as usual, and he had left his laptop open. I saw a massive file labeled Project Site Docs Final. I figured it was work stuff. I opened it just to check the size, and that's when everything came crashing down. Wasn't blueprints, it was a massive spreadsheet, a detailed multi-tab financial report for the GoFundMe money, not medical expenses. The tabs were named things like Amy C payback and Mark G rental fees and Jackass silence. Amy C, who the hell was Amy C? I scrolled down the list of transactions. There were the $200 withdrawals, over 30 of them. There were huge $500 transfers labeled cat food bulk order. There was a recurring $85 charge to Manny's Plumbing Services, LLC, every single month, but Robert always fixed our tiny leaks himself. I felt my heart racing, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped his expensive laptop. My stomach dropped straight to the floor, like I'd just ridden the scariest roller coaster ever. This was the moment I realized the man I was planning to marry was a criminal, and I was his unwitting accomplice. I immediately started deep diving. I opened his Amazon account, thank God for saved passwords, TBH. He was ordering huge bags of bulk, cheap cat litter, and high-end specialty cat food. He ordered 3 Ring doorbells last month and paid for them using the GoFundMe Visa debit card. The whole thing was just chaos. I tried to call him. It was supposedly at the construction site, but his location tracking? Yes, I turned that on months ago. I was paranoid. Showed him in an entirely different part of the city near the university campus. I drove there in my Civic, ignoring all the speed limits. I was seeing red. I was crying so hard my vision was blurry, and the mascara was running down my face. I was screaming internally, "This can't be real, I'm dreaming, right?" I was parked outside a dilapidated, huge old Victorian house. Definitely not a construction site, definitely not a clinic. I saw him exit the house and he was carrying 2 large duffel bags and chatting animatedly with an older woman. This was Amy Carter, 25F. She was young, vibrant, and wearing a sweatshirt that said Future Cat Lady. She was beautiful and she smelled faintly of tuna and desperation. I jumped out of the car. "Robert, what the hell is going on? What are you doing here?" He froze, literally mid-sentence about whether he should try the Talenti flavor with the pretzels in it next. Amy Carter, 25F, looked terrified. Robert immediately went into full-blown gaslighting mode. "Amy, what are you doing? You're being dramatic. I'm meeting with a donor." "This is Amy. She's a massive supporter of the campaign," he stammered. I pointed at the duffel bags. "Are these full of experimental medication, Robert? Or are they full of fancy feast? Why are you near the university when you're supposed to be in treatment?" He tried to grab my arm, but I pulled away. "Don't touch me." Amy Carter spoke up, her voice small and shaky. Wait, what campaign? I thought you were paying me for the breeding supply fees?" Robert glared at her. "Shut up, Amy." That was the moment I introduced myself. "I'm Amy Morris, 56F, Robert's fiance. And Robert, you're not sick, are you? This whole thing is a lie. Money, it's going to cat food, isn't it? Who is Amy Carter and why does she have a payback tab on your secret criminal spreadsheet?" The younger Amy looked horrified. She whispered, "He told me he was using the money for a highly complex veterinary project to save abandoned show cats. He told me he was dying of silica poisoning." I shrieked. Robert realized the jig was up. He ditched the duffel bags and started to run toward his beat-up Corolla. I didn't chase him. I was too busy staring at the younger woman. "Why are you helping him scam people?" I asked, my voice barely a thread. Amy Carter started crying, tears streaming down her face and dripping onto her cat sweatshirt. "I didn't know he was doing a GoFundMe scam. He told me he got a massive settlement from his family. He just needed a safe place to store and feed his rare Persian breeding stock. He promised me $1,000 a month to house the cats here. I'm a cat hoarder, okay? I have 37 of them and I'm drowning in debt and my landlord is threatening eviction." I was devastated but also weirdly relieved. The sickness was a lie, but the reality was worse. I was dating a sociopath who preyed on a lonely, desperate cat hoarder to launder money raised from the goodwill of thousands of strangers. The spreadsheet clicked into place. The cat food bulk orders. The high water bill, cats drink a lot, apparently. Amy Carter, 25F, was the initial reason for the massive cash flow. I looked back at the house. You could hear the muffled, distressed meows from inside. "Wait, so if you're the cat hoarder, what about Mark Gonzalez and Jack Smith? Who are they?" I asked Amy Carter. She wiped her nose on her sleeve. "Mark Gonzalez, 74M, he's my neighbor. He's a retired professor of architectural history at the university. Robert said he was helping him write a paper on sustainable construction materials." This sounded familiar. Robert had told me he was consulting an academic specialist to understand the complexities of the silica dust. More lies. "And Jack Smith, 80M, he's Mark's uncle. He lives with him. They're both super weird. Mark and Robert are always arguing about citations and academic competition. But Jack is always lurking." Mention of Jack Smith, 80M, sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. I remembered one really bizarre text exchange Robert had last week. He was texting someone about needing the footage to keep the situation contained. I pulled out Robert's phone from the jacket I had grabbed when I fled our apartment. I scrolled through his texts, looking for Jack Smith. I found the conversation. It was recent. "Robert, Mark is being a massive pain about the historical citations. I guess Mark is jealous. Always was, just like he was when I wrote that 10-year review. Don't worry, I have leverage. Robert, the footage? Jack S. Yes, $500 more this month or I show Mark what you're really doing with your sick leave. That construction site story, I know what the real job site is. Robert, fine, Zell incoming. Just keep that monster quiet about the gender reassignment." My jaw literally dropped, like a cartoon character jaw drop. "Monster. Gender reassignment?" I muttered, staring at the screen. Amy Carter looked at me, her eyes wide. "Wait, you don't know? Jack Smith is Mark Gonzalez's estranged uncle. He's incredibly transphobic. Robert told me he was using Jack as leverage because Jack knows that Mark is secretly transgender, and if he outs him, Mark will lose his standing at the university." The audacity. Absolute audacity of this man to use someone's deepest secret as blackmail fodder while running a massive medical charity scam built on lies and cats. "The spreadsheet?" I whispered, holding up the phone. The tab, Jackass silence. He was blackmailing an 80-year-old transphobic man to keep quiet about a 74-year-old academic competitor who happens to be transgender, all while pretending to be dying. Amy Carter leaned against the rusty iron fence of her cat house. "Yeah, it's a lot, but you need to know something else. Robert said he needed the GoFundMe money to pull off the real score. He said he needed to finance something big at the construction site." "What big score?" I asked, feeling my chest tight. I wanted to scream, but we were in a residential neighborhood. Amy Carter hesitated, chewing on her lip. "He said he needed capital to buy out his foreman spot, and that the only way he could get the money fast enough was the GoFundMe. He said the real construction site work was totally legitimate, but he needed a boost." I almost laughed hysterically. "He's not a foreman, he's a liar, he bought those boots on Amazon." "I know," she burst out, "but I think the site is legitimate. I saw the permits. He's trying to build a really specific, custom concrete foundation somewhere for a new building. That's why he was always talking about structural stability and needing a foreman position. He needed access." Look down at the texts again. Jack Smith, the transphobic family member, was threatening to expose Mark Gonzalez, the academic competitor who was secretly transitioning. Robert was using the GoFundMe money, my friends, my family's money to pay for silence and cat hoarding space. And it was all converging on the construction site downtown, the one Robert had claimed was killing him. Suddenly, I remembered a frantic, aggressive phone call Robert had 2 days ago. I only caught a snippet, but he was yelling, "Look, I need the concrete pour signed off on by Friday. I don't care about the plumbing issue, just hide the damn pipe." The $85 plumber charge, the constant talk of the foundation. I looked at Amy Carter. "You said Robert told you needed the GoFundMe money to finance something big? What was he financing? What's going on at that construction site?" Before she could answer, her front door flew open. A middle-aged man with a worried face stood there. "Amy, the cats are loose. Mittens just ate Fluffy's fancy orthopedic kibble. We have a crisis." Amy Carter gave me an apologetic shrug. "Look, I have to go secure the Persian breeding stock. But listen, there's one more thing Robert told me, and you have to understand he swore he was being legit about this part." She looked straight at me, dead serious. "He told me that if anything happened to him, you needed to make sure the foundation was never, ever poured over the site before the inspector arrived. He said if that concrete sets, the whole GoFundMe lie will be the least of your problems. He said he finally pulled off his ultimate goal, a massive financial inheritance for the baby." "Wait," I stammered, feeling the blood drain from my face. "What baby?" "Robert and I, we don't have a baby." Amy Carter's face softened into an expression of pity that chilled me to the bone. "Oh, honey, that's the one thing Robert didn't lie about to the GoFundMe donors, only to you. He ran the whole campaign under the premise that he needed to survive for his unborn child. He told me he already had the pregnancy secured. He just didn't tell you who the mother was." I staggered back, feeling my legs go weak. Remembered reading that specific part of the campaign text months ago. "Please help Robert survive to meet his first child." I always assumed it was a future hope, something we would pursue after he got better. I looked at Amy Carter, the cat hoarder, the unknowing accomplice. "Are you the mother?" She shook her head, tears welling up again. "God, no. He paid someone else. A surrogate, I think. But Robert kept saying she was demanding more money and he had to hide her from you. He said the pregnancy was the ultimate trap. He called it his insurance policy." My whole world tilted. Not only was I an accomplice in a financial scam, but my fiancé had hired a surrogate using the lie money and was planning to use this fictitious child to control me and the money further. Before I could even process the sheer horror of this revelation, a text notification flashed on Robert's phone, which was still clutched in my hand. It was from an unknown number. "Known 5:30 a.m. tomorrow. Foundation pour. Don't be late. Bring the cash." I checked the time. It was now 3:45 a.m. I had less than 2 hours before the concrete trucks arrived at the actual construction site. I looked at Amy Carter, the desperate cat hoarder, and then at the dead phone in my hand. If I let that foundation pour, whatever Robert had hidden or built into that site would be permanent. And then there was the pregnancy trap. I was done, just done. Had to stop the pour. But how was I going to stop a major commercial construction site pour on a Tuesday morning at 5:30 a.m. with no ID, no credibility, and the man responsible already running for the hills? And more importantly, who was the mother of this insurance policy baby? I looked up the GoFundMe donor list for the biggest anonymous donations and saw two names that stuck out: Mark Gonzalez and Jack Smith. They had both donated $5,000 each. This was no longer just about a scam. This was about blackmail, a secret pregnancy, and whatever the hell was about to be buried under a ton of wet cement. I have to go. I need coffee, gas, and a plan. I'm heading downtown to the construction site. Wish me luck, because I'm pretty sure I'm about to commit some form of felony just trying to salvage my dignity and the $87,450 raised for a non-existent lung disease. I need to find out what Robert buried there, and I need to find the surrogate. The construction site is where it all started. It's where it has to end. I'm driving there now. My hands are still shaking, but the panic has turned into pure, cold, incandescent rage. I'm going to stop that concrete pour even if I have to stand in front of the truck myself. I will update when I know what is literally being cemented into my life forever. Pray for me. Maybe send a Zelle for gas money because I only have $43.67 left in my account after yesterday's Trader Joe's run. I really hope I'm not crazy. I'm leaving the Costco parking lot now. I just saw a notification flash on Robert's phone. The battery must have kicked back on momentarily. It was a picture message from the unknown number. It was an ultrasound photo, and a text underneath it said, "Unknown, see you soon, Daddy. Eat the rent money for the new apartment. $1,247 due tomorrow. Don't forget about the twins. Okay, I am back." It is 8:15 a.m. now. I'm sitting in a very expensive, very disgusting coffee shop across the street from the actual construction site. I had to pay $11.50 for a coffee and a slightly stale blueberry muffin just to use their non-Costco bathroom. I feel like I'm running on pure adrenaline and shame, honestly. I left off right after the bombshell. Not only was Robert scamming everyone, not only was he blackmailing a transphobic 80-year-old to hide a 74-year-old transgender professor, but he had hired a surrogate using GoFundMe money, and she was carrying TWINS. And the text message, the one that used our shared rent amount, $1,247, as the new apartment's rent, made it crystal clear that this surrogate was expecting payment tomorrow. I drove straight from Amy Carter's place, the Cat House of Horrors, toward the downtown construction site. My Civic was running on fumes, and I had to stop at a sketchy Shell station where the lights flickered and smelled faintly of old motor oil. I bought 2 cans of highly caffeinated energy drink because sleep was clearly not happening for the next 72 hours. It was 4:45 a.m. when I arrived downtown. Construction site for the skyscraper was already busy, which NGL surprised me. I thought only Robert pretended to work at 5 a.m. There were actual, legitimate construction workers, wearing real safety gear and looking miserable. It was a stark contrast to Robert's fake dust and Amazon boots. My objective was simple: stop the concrete pour scheduled for 5:30 a.m. My plan was less simple, or rather, non-existent. I pulled up to the security gate, which was guarded by a guy who looked like he'd been awake since the dinosaurs roamed the earth. He was massive and holding a clipboard. I rolled down my window, put on my best concerned citizen face, which probably looked more like woman who hasn't slept in 36 hours and just found out her life is a lie. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound official. "I need to speak to the foreman immediately. This is an environmental emergency." Art, who had a name tag that said Bari, blinked slowly. "Ma'am, the foreman isn't due until 6:30, and we don't allow civilians on site." "Look, Bari," I leaned in conspiratorially. "This site is compromised. There's a major plumbing issue, and if that foundation concrete pour goes ahead in the next 30 minutes, you're going to be burying something that will result in massive litigation and structural failure. We are talking millions of dollars in fines." Bari just scratched his head. "Lady, we pour foundations every week. If there was a plumbing issue, it would have been flagged by Manny's Plumbing Services." Manny's Plumbing Services? The $85 recurring charge on Robert's spreadsheet. "Manny's Plumbing is involved in this illegal cover-up," I declared. I realized I sounded like a crazy person. I was a crazy person. Bari stood up straight. "Look, if you have a real concern, you call the city inspector. You don't come screaming at me at 5 a.m. He started to walk away toward a small office trailer. This was my only chance. I did something I am honestly still ashamed of, but it worked. I slammed my Civic into park, jumped out, and started screaming about the twins. "The baby, the TWINS are going to die. He is burying the evidence. Robert Morris is a liar. He is not sick. He is a scammer, and he is burying the cat money." This caught Bari's attention. It also caught the attention of about 6 other workers who had stopped what they were doing and were now staring at the middle-aged woman having a complete meltdown next to a truck full of rebar. Bari rushed back. "Ma'am, I am calling the police if you don't calm down." "Call them," I shrieked. "I want to speak to the real foreman. Robert Morris is a fraud. He lied about silica poisoning, and he's hiding something in the foundation." Just as the concrete truck started pulling up to the staging area for giant mixers, ready to go, I saw a familiar face emerge from the office trailer looking annoyed. It was Robert. Robert, looking perfectly healthy, wearing clean, non-dusty work boots, talking into a cheap Bluetooth headset. He saw me, froze, and his face went instantly pale. He actually dropped his headset. "Amy, what the hell are you doing?" he yelled, starting toward me. I realized Amy Carter was right. Robert was here, and he was trying to push this through. He wasn't the foreman, but he was clearly involved in managing this specific section of the pour. "I know about the spreadsheet, Robert. I know about Amy Carter and the cats. I know about Mark and Jack and the blackmail. And I know about the twins," I yelled, pointing dramatically at the incoming concrete trucks. "You are not pouring that concrete." Robert, surprisingly, didn't try to gaslight me this time. He looked genuinely scared. Not scared of me, but scared of the delay. "You have no idea what you're interfering with, Amy. Get back in your car," he hissed, grabbing my elbow. I jerked my arm away. "I know enough. Where's the pipe? Where did you hide whatever Manny's Plumbing was supposed to cover up?" Before Robert could answer, a small, elegant older man, wearing surprisingly crisp jeans and a slightly too expensive puffer vest, walked quickly out of the trailer. This was not a construction worker. Looked at Robert, then at me, then at the trucks. "Robert, what is this nonsense? We have 45 minutes until the city inspector arrives for the pre-pour safety check. We cannot have a civilian disruption." Robert stammered. "Mr. G, she's having a personal issue. She'll leave." I looked at the older man. He had sharp, assessing eyes and a very academic posture. Mark Gonzalez, 74M, the academic competitor who was secretly transitioning and being blackmailed. "You Mark Gonzalez?" I asked, my voice suddenly calm, fueled by a new kind of power. Mark Gonzalez looked surprised. "I am, and who are you?" "I am Amy Morris, Robert's ex-fiancée and unwitting accomplice in his $87,450 GoFundMe fraud. And I know your uncle, Jack Smith, is blackmailing you to keep quiet about your transition, and Robert is paying him with money raised for his fake lung disease," I stated, completely deadpan. Robert looked like he was going to spontaneously combust. Mark Gonzalez's jaw dropped, all the color drained from his face. "Excuse me, and I know you donated $5,000 to the Saving Robert campaign, sir," I continued. "I saw the spreadsheet. Why did you give him $5 grand? To secure the silence of your transphobic uncle, Jack Smith?" Mark Gonzalez took a sharp intake of breath. The construction workers were now totally silent, captivated. "Is insane," Robert muttered, trying to pull Mark away. Mark ignored him. He looked at me, a mixture of profound shock and reluctant respect in his eyes. Jack knows I was preparing for surgery. He knows, and Robert was paying him $500 a month to keep quiet," I confirmed, pulling up the screenshot of the text exchange on Robert's dead phone. It had one bar now: "Miracles do happen." Mark looked at the text, specifically the part about gender reassignment. His hands started shaking. "The $5,000, he whispered. "Robert claimed he was buying a specific type of historic salvaged rebar for this foundation that was vital to the architectural integrity. He needed seed money. He said he'd pay it back from the construction site earnings. He needed capital to pay off Jack and finance the cats," I corrected him. He was running a total shell game. Just then, a rusty sedan screeched to a halt behind my Civic. Out stepped an ancient, thin man leaning heavily on a cane, wearing a trench coat in August. "Jack Smith, ADM. "Mark, there you are running around with this criminal," Jack yelled, his voice surprisingly robust for an octogenarian. "You owe me $500, Mark, or I call the committee." Mark Gonzalez straightened up, all the fear replaced by pure, exhausted fury. He looked at his uncle, then at Robert, who was now quietly backing toward a pickup truck. "I won't have to call anyone, Jack," Mark said, his voice steel, "because I will tell them myself. Today, I'm retiring effective immediately. And you, Jack, are done. You have zero leverage left. You disgust me." Jack Smith looked utterly deflated, his blackmail weapon suddenly useless. I seized the moment, ignoring the personal drama. "Robert, what are you hiding in that foundation trench?" Robert bolted. He made a dash for the waiting pickup truck, but Bari, the enormous security guard, suddenly decided this was highly suspicious behavior and tackled Robert to the ground like a professional linebacker. It was magnificent. TBH, best part of the morning. With Robert pinned, Mark Gonzalez and I rushed toward the trench where the foundation was about to be poured. There was a section near the center that looked freshly backfilled. Said he had a plumbing issue he needed to hide before the inspector. I frantically explained to Mark. Mark, being the academic competitor focused on architecture, knew exactly what to look for. He grabbed a shovel from a nearby mound of dirt and started digging right where the foundation lines met the main utility hookup. We dug for maybe 2 minutes, me using a tiny gardening trowel I keep in my Civics emergency kit, don't judge, and Mark using the shovel. And Mark stopped, his shovel hitting something solid that wasn't earth or concrete. It's a vault, Mark muttered, brushing dirt away from a large metallic cube sunk into the earth, wrapped in black plastic sheeting. A vault? I yelled. Is he burying the $87,000? Mark and I struggled to lift the plastic. It was a heavy-duty, commercial-grade safe, maybe 3 feet by 2 feet. Mark whistled softly. This isn't just a plumber's mistake. This is professional. Suddenly, there was the sound of distant sirens. Barry must have succeeded in calling the police. Before the police arrived, Mark noticed a tiny label on the side of the vault, almost entirely obscured by dirt. He cleaned it off with his sleeve. It's not money, Amy, Mark said, looking pale again. It's the university's archival hard drive, the one that contained the original drafts of the founders' papers. It went missing from the architectural history department 2 months ago. It's irreplaceable. Robert wasn't trying to steal money. He was trying to steal history and bury the evidence under a skyscraper. And he needed GoFundMe money to pay off the accomplices, Manny's Plumbing, Jack Smith, who helped him secure the site access and the means to hide it. The big score wasn't building a building. It was stealing the foundation of the university's history. Mark Gonzalez looked at me, completely overwhelmed. Amy, you just saved my entire life and possibly the university's reputation. I'm going to cooperate completely with the police. The police arrived, lights flashing. Barry handed Robert over, who was still trying to protest his innocence, screaming about his sick leave and experimental medicine. Mark immediately started explaining about the stolen hard drive. Meanwhile, was giving a very concise, detailed explanation of GoFundMe fraud, academic blackmail, and 37 Persian cats. I stayed and gave my statement to the police until about 11 a.m., showing them the spreadsheet screenshots and the text from Jack Smith. The police were surprisingly kind, but made it clear that while Robert was definitely going down for grand larceny and possibly fraud, I was still the co-promoter of the GoFundMe. Advised me to hire an attorney immediately, so that was Tuesday. The foundation pour was postponed. Robert was arrested. Jack Smith was screaming about injustice and libel, and Mark Gonzalez decided to go ahead and tell the department about his transition and his immediate retirement. Update, it's been 2 days since the arrest. Thursday afternoon. I'm currently at my sister's house, sitting on her hideous floral couch, feeling emotionally hollowed out. I haven't been back to the shared apartment. She changed my locks for me yesterday, just in case Robert somehow got bail, which NGL is unlikely considering the stolen university archive. The GoFundMe page is down. I manually shut it off myself on Wednesday morning, shortly after speaking to a terrifyingly expensive lawyer named Patricia. Tricia informed me that because I was the face of the campaign and had access to the joint account where some of the funds were transferred, I am facing massive civil liability and possible criminal charges related to wire fraud, even if I was an unwitting dupe. She said the best thing I can do is fully cooperate, provide all evidence, and attempt to make restitution. Restitution. That means paying back $87,450. I don't have $87,450. I have $43.67 and a car full of junk. But the good news is I have an unlikely ally, Amy Carter, 25F, the cat hoarder. Amy C. contacted me through Facebook Messenger, completely terrified, saying her landlord had finally served her eviction papers because the house smelled faintly of concentrated ammonia and exotic cat food. She was utterly desperate. I called her. Amy, listen to me. You were being paid to house cats using stolen money. You're in danger of being charged too. You need to tell the police everything. I did, she wailed. But they don't care about the cats. They just asked about the safe. I don't know what to do with Mittens and Fluffy and the 35 others. This is where the guilty bystander part of me kicked in. I felt awful for her. She was young, clearly battling mental health issues related to hoarding, and Robert had specifically preyed on that vulnerability. Okay, I sighed. I can't take your cats, Amy, but I can help you save yourself. I drove to her house, armed with a box of heavy-duty garbage bags and pure determination. Amy C. was waiting, wearing the same cat sweatshirt, but this time she had a determined look on her face. Together, we spent 6 hours documenting every single cat, cleaning up the absolute disaster of the house. I wore a mask, NGL, the smell was unbelievable, and making calls to local no-kill shelters and rescue groups. During the cleanup, Amy C. confessed something shocking. Robert kept coming over to check on the cats, she said, scrubbing something questionable off the floor. He wasn't just hoarding them, he was preparing to sell them. He said they were rare breeds and he had a network of buyers ready. He needed the GoFundMe money to feed them until the final sale went through. So, Robert was planning on parlaying a charity scam into an exotic pet smuggling ring? I just shook my head. The layers of criminality were astounding. Amy C. also provided me with a crucial piece of evidence, the name of the surrogate. Robert had referred to her only by a coded name, the deposit, but Amy C. had overheard him talking about a Tara S. who lived near the community college and was due next month. I immediately contacted my lawyer, Patricia, who got the police involved. They tracked down Tara S., the deposit. Plot twist of the week. Tara S. was not pregnant with Robert's twins. She was an administrative assistant at the community college who was running her own, small, legitimate GoFundMe to pay for a complicated surgery for her elderly father. Robert had successfully convinced her to take photos of her ultrasound, which showed twins, apparently a miracle. and send them to him, along with her rent information, which he then used to pressure me and secure insurance money. He was using a real GoFundMe campaign's medical photos to run his fake GoFundMe campaign's pregnancy trap. The sheer sociopathic efficiency of this man is baffling. Tara S. was horrified and gave the police every single text Robert had sent her, which was all the proof I needed that the twins were a massive lie, confirming I was not financially responsible for a surprise family. Huge relief, TBH. Next few days blurred into an endless cycle of legal meetings, emotional eating. I think I single-handedly kept Talenti in business and trying to process the sheer scale of the betrayal. Fast forward to Friday, 1 week after the arrest. Mark Gonzalez, 74M, called me this morning. He sounded relaxed for the first time. "Amy," he said, "I spoke to the department. I'm taking early retirement." And I told them everything. About Jack, about the transition, everything. Reaction was incredibly supportive, actually. Mark thanked me again for stopping the foundation pour and saving the archival material. He told me that his uncle, Jack Smith, was being investigated for extortion and harassment, and the university was pressing charges related to the archive theft. Jack apparently gave Robert the necessary access codes, the ultimate betrayal of the institution. I'm withdrawing my $5,000 donation from the GoFundMe. I'm legally allowed to do that since it was fraudulently obtained, Mark told me. And I want to donate that $5,000 directly to you for your legal defense fund. Consider it an investment in a brave, if slightly messy, young woman who saved my career. I actually cried when he said that. $5,000 doesn't cover the total restitution, but it covers Patricia's retainer and gives me breathing room. Accepted it immediately. My relationship with Amy Carter, 25F, also took an unexpected turn toward actual friendship. She moved out of the cat house today. We managed to secure placement for 30 of the 37 cats with various rescue groups. She kept 7, and she's moving into a tiny studio apartment that explicitly allows cats, bless their landlord. She messaged me this afternoon. "Amy C. Hey Amy M. Just wanted to say thanks again. I'm going to therapy next week. I feel so ashamed about the hoarding, but also I feel hopeful. Me, NGL, therapy is good. I'm going to need it too. I still feel stupid. Amy C. Don't. We were both victims of a grade A sociopath. At least your fiancé wasn't feeding your cats stolen historical documents. Me, LOL, true, call me later. We should get coffee that doesn't cost $11.50. I actually laughed. A real, honest-to-God laugh. First one since Tuesday. A week went by where I mostly dealt with logistical nightmares. I moved my remaining possessions out of apartment 3B. Robert's things are still there, boxed up. The landlord agreed to terminate my part of the lease early, thankfully, provided I covered the final month. Patricia, my lawyer, is negotiating the restitution with the GoFundMe platform and the bank. They are being surprisingly sympathetic since I provided all the evidence. My friends have been incredible. My best friend Carol came over, brought wine, and we went through my phone, blocking Robert on everything. She screenshotted everything. She was incandescent with rage on my behalf. 56 Amy, you're 56, you're allowed to be happy, this isn't your fault. She yelled at me, which honestly I needed to hear. I had a moment of weakness though. On Tuesday, I was getting gas and I saw Robert's beat-up Corolla parked at a convenience store. He was out on bail, which totally infuriated me. He was standing there, chatting on the phone, looking relaxed. I almost drove away. But then the rage, the pure incandescent rage I felt that morning at the construction site came back. I pulled up right next to his car. He saw me and he immediately hung up the phone looking guilty. Amy, look, I'm so glad you're okay. We need to talk about the lease and the stop. I cut him off. My voice was surprisingly steady. I know everything, Robert. Construction site, the safe, the academic blackmail, the GoFundMe, the cats, the fake twins. There's nothing you can say to me. He tried to go into gaslighting mode, a last desperate move. Amy, you're being hysterical. I was trying to protect you. The doctors were wrong, the sickness cleared up. It was a miracle, honey, and I was going to surprise you with the money, I swear. And those twins, that was our future, Amy. You ruined everything. I looked him straight in the eyes. Didn't ruin everything, Robert. You ruined everything when you decided to use $87,450 raised for a non-existent lung disease to fund a multi-layered scheme involving historical document theft and cat hoarder exploitation. And you had the audacity to lie to people who were genuinely trying to save your life. I pulled out my phone and held it up. My lawyer has everything. I'm cooperating fully. I hope they throw the book at you. And I did something petty, but oh so satisfying. I Venmo requested him $1,247, half the security deposit we put down on the apartment. I added the memo. Restitution for emotional distress and being an accomplice to feline-related financial fraud. He just stared at me. He was absolutely speechless. Then I got back in my Civic and drove away. He left me on read, of course, but it felt amazing. I finally changed the Netflix password that night. That's true freedom, TBH. It's now the following Monday, almost 2 weeks after the initial discovery. I'm typing this from my sister's guest room, which is honestly starting to feel like home. I've had 4 therapy sessions. My therapist, Dr. Lee, says I'm having a breakthrough. I call it Tuesday. I still have massive financial worries. I have officially started paying back the GoFundMe donors, starting with the smaller amounts. It's going to take years, but I'm doing it. The community support has been wild. Some people have actually told me to keep the money that they donated out of good faith and I was the real victim. But I can't. I need to make this right. I was the face of the lie and I have to be the face of the recovery. I've learned so much about the people in this mess. Robert, he's currently out on heavy bail, awaiting trial for multiple felonies. His career prospects are zero. Tried to contact me multiple times, but I blocked him on everything. He's genuinely a sociopath who saw people as resources, not humans. Good riddance. Amy Carter, 25F, she's doing okay. We text regularly. She's actively working on her hoarding issues and starting community college. She's surprisingly smart. She's becoming a genuinely nice person, now that she isn't terrified of losing 37 cats. She's my first new friend in years, NGL. Mark Gonzalez, 74M, he went through with the retirement and transition announcement. He's embracing his new life and is in contact with me regarding the legal proceedings against Jack. He sends me academic articles about fraud and ethics, which is very Mark. He's surprisingly happy. Jack Smith, 80M, he's facing serious legal issues related to extortion and theft, thanks to the undeniable evidence from Robert's phone and Mark's testimony. Went from transphobic blackmailer to likely convict. Karma, I guess. Amy Morris, 56F, me, I'm exhausted. I still cry sometimes, usually in the shower so my sister doesn't worry. I still struggle with the guilt, the stupid feeling that I should have known better. I look at my ring finger, where the cheap cubic zirconia engagement ring sat, and I just feel this deep, shuddering relief that I dodged a bullet, even if that bullet left a crater in my finances and reputation. Went back to the 5th floor office where I work. Coworkers know now. The gossip reached terminal velocity as expected, but instead of judgment, I mostly got pity and a surprising amount of admiration for stopping the concrete pour. One guy even brought me a homemade casserole. The resolution approach is clear now. Recovery journey. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and it's covered in paperwork and court dates. I am not living perfectly. I'm still stress eating those tiny bags of chips. My credit score took a hit because I had to move accounts around, but at least I'm free. Yesterday, I was scrolling through TikTok, procrastinating on answering a very intimidating email from Patricia, and I saw a video of a cat wearing a tiny hat. I laughed so hard I almost choked on my ramen. It was the kind of genuine, unburdened laugh I hadn't realized I was missing for the last 2 years and 8 months. It's the thing about realizing your whole life was built on a GoFundMe lie. The moment the foundation cracks, it hurts like hell, but then you realize you get to rebuild. And this time, I'm using real cement, real facts, and making sure the only cats involved are the ones I choose to pet. The whole disaster started because I wanted to save the man I loved from a non-existent disease. Now, I'm saving myself from a very real, very expensive mistake. I'm eating ramen every day but sleeping peacefully, so honestly, worth it. We'll update if anything else insane happens, but TBH, I'm hoping for a very, very boring rest of the year. Wish me luck with the civil litigation. I'm going to need it.